Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I hope that you're all having a good weekend so far, even though it's still probably early Saturday morning for most of you. I know it is for me. Let's go ahead and start this off today because I have a lot of news to cover today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start this off with the solar flare that is headed towards the Earth. It's a coronal mass ejection, and it seems to be somewhat of a big one. And I actually pulled this clip that you're looking at here from the Suspicious Observer. Those of you that are not subscribed to Suspicious Observer, go over there and check him out because he's got an awesome channel. His videos are often very short and to the point, and I think he does a great job. And here he captures the sun actually showing the CME from the sun, and this little thing that you see here, that's Mercury right there. Mercury is photobombing this picture of the sun. But take a look at this CME. It's a pretty big one. And right here, let me go ahead and pause this. Right here, if you can take a look at this screen, the yellow right here is the Earth. So this is us right here. And take a look at the size of this coronal mass ejection. The coronal mass ejection starts right here in the middle from the sun, as you can see. And look at this. It's headed right towards us, and it's a pretty nice big one. So it's going to get us pretty good. However, I trust the Suspicious Observer, and what he says is that this coronal mass ejection may cause some radio interference and things like that, but that we really don't have too much to worry about. And take a look at it here in real life. It's a huge coronal mass ejection. You can see the Earth there, how small it is in comparison to the size of the coronal mass ejection. So not too much to worry about, ladies and gentlemen. I watch the Suspicious Observer every single morning just to make sure that I know what's going on with the sun and any CMEs that may be coming down the line. And he's usually pretty up to date as far as I'm concerned. And whenever a CME goes off, for you that don't know, it usually takes a while before it gets to the Earth, depending on how fast it is. Henry Kissenger warns of Ukraine conflict escalating into wide war with Russia, meaning the Western world, to go with Russia, right? And it says here, former Secretary of State urges negotiations as the only solution in the long term to end the conflict and return to regional stability. And this was in May of this year. Now I'm setting this up for you, ladies and gentlemen, and then I'm going to ask you a question that I just don't understand. Maybe there's an answer to it, but I don't understand how it is that the Western nations can go to war. All right, so let me just read this last little excerpt for you right here. And he says that after provoking an escalation of the Ukrainian crisis and unleashing a violent hybrid confrontation with Russia, Washington and its allies are dangerously teetering on the brink of an open military confrontation with our country. But my question is this. We are doing all of these things, all of these sanctions. We're providing Ukraine with weapons and stuff like that. But the Western nations themselves are begging Russia for oil, meaning that they depend on Russia for oil. They're having a food shortage crisis, or we're having a food shortage crisis, whereas China has enough food for the next year stored up, at least a year, if not a year and a half. Where Russia has all of the energy that it needs to sustain itself, and other nations depend on it to get their energy. Whose side of the confrontation do you think those countries that depend on Russia for fuel and for food are going to be on, should there be an escalation that turns hot? All right, so Kissenger here is pretty much saying that he said on Fox News that we should expect direct conflict with Russia by mid-August. So he's pretty much saying that the Western nations, i.e. the U.S., will be in somewhat of a hot war with Russia by August. But how are we going to fight that war when we can't even produce enough energy for ourselves and our allies? A war, in order for you to fight a war, you need resources, and resources equals energy. How are we going to fight a war, ladies and gentlemen? That's what I want to know. What do you think? How are we going to fight a war against forces that are fully equipped, that have all of the energy that they need, that have all of the food that they need, that have a motivated army, Have you taken a look at our army lately, ladies and gentlemen? I know that we have a lot of good soldiers and officers, but our army has changed over the years. And I think you know what I mean. How are we going to fight that war, ladies and gentlemen? One of my biggest fears is not nuclear war. One of my biggest fears is not nuclear war. I look at other articles and I see how Russia is still working with the United States in the International Space Station. If we are such big enemies, why in the world are we still working together at that capacity? But I digress on that. My biggest fear is that we are pushed into a war that we can't win. And the decisions that are made on our behalf will be decisions that will be detrimental to our nation's sovereignty. That is my biggest fear, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that is my biggest fear. But I would like to know, how can we win a war? How can we win a war when we've sent a lot of our armament overseas and now we ourselves are low on munitions? Same thing with Europe. How can we win our war when we've been depleting our strategic petroleum reserves in order to try to bring the gas price down? And it's worked. It's come down about 20, 30 cents, 40 cents a gallon, whatever it is. But does that really make a difference in your life? That it went from $5.50 to $4.90, let's say. Does that make much of a difference in your life when a year ago you were paying $2 or $2.50? Half of what you're paying now. How are we going to win a war like that, ladies and gentlemen? Anyways, it's more of a question than a statement. There used to be a time where the United States can just print, and import. And countries outside of the United States would just take those dollars. They would take paper bills for real goods. Why? Because they needed those paper bills in order to purchase energy in the international market. Well, now these countries are saying, we don't need these paper bills. We can print our own. They're like printing their own paper bills and going to other large producers of energy and buying it from them and bypassing the dollar. So another reason, if we go to war, what is our dollar going to be worth if we do go to war? What's it going to be worth? And where are we going to get the resources that we need in order to engage in that hot war? Everyone is leaving the dollar. Little by little, everyone is leaving the dollar. All these other nations are tired of having to use something that they don't want to use because they know exactly what it is. Food banks seeing flood of families despite low unemployment. Well, let me give you a little bit of a lesson on unemployment. Right now they're saying that unemployment is what, 3.6, 3.9%, something like that. It's very low. But what they don't tell you is that a lot of times when people get unemployed and they can no longer qualify for unemployment benefits and they give up looking for work, they fall in a different category where they are still unemployed. They're out of the labor market, but they're not counted as being unemployed. Food banks, as I stated here a while back, are going to run out of food. And what are these people going to do when the food banks run out of food? What are they going to do when the churches run out of food? And we're going to fight a war? To put it short, MMT just pretty much says that you can gain wealth by printing money. So you can just print money and make wealth out of thin air. And ladies and gentlemen, you can't do that. How can you create energy out of nothing? Energy has to be transferred from one to another. That is why when they print money out of thin air, where no energy was expanded to earn that money into creation, that printed money has to steal wealth from all of the other dollars that are in the system that were actually earned into reality. So when you go and you trade your labor for dollar bills, those dollar bills are being earned into the economy. But when you print dollar bills out of thin air, there was never any labor traded for those dollar bills. So the labor that gives them value are little bits and pieces of the labor that you earned your dollar bills with, making your dollar bills less valuable. It is a simple lesson that should be taught to every child, teenager, and even adult if they don't know it yet, because that would fix a lot of our problems. If they could only ask one question, if they can learn to ask one question and that is, where are you going to get the money? Whenever the government puts out a budget, the only question that we have to ask is, where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to get it? And if they tell you that they're going to print it out of thin air, i.e. borrow it from the Federal Reserve, then you know that they're getting it from you. The future consequences were very clear. Printing up money and passing it out around town, thus entitling people to claim on goods and services without commensurate production, is fundamentally foolish, reckless, and outright suicidal. Only academics and central bankers were blind to the arrival of today's inflations, and I would have to disagree with that. They were not blind. They knew exactly what they were doing. Powell and Yellen have their fingerprints all over this consumer price inflation mess. Yet they did not act alone. Advocates of MMT cheered on their mass money printing with righteous assurances. They said inflation wouldn't be a problem, but now there's nobody to be found to say, oh, I was wrong. Oh, let me resign. No, ladies and gentlemen, because they know exactly what's going on. They know that it's going to enrich them. MMT and money printing, quantitative easing, whatever you want to call it, only enriches those that are already rich. It takes away from the working man, from the working woman. If you earn a wage, quantitative easing, stimulus, MMT, whatever you want to call it, it is you that is paying for that, for everyone else, and you will never get ahead with it. Now, this is probably one of the most important parts of this video. Central bank digital currencies are coming. What will be the consequences? Now, I'm not going to talk about CBDCs. It's kind of odd that I talked about it yesterday and now this article comes up. I'm not saying it came up because I talked about it. These guys probably don't even know who I am. But remember when I told you that CBDCs would be under the control of the Federal Reserve, not even the Treasury, and technically not the government, right? Because the Federal Reserve is a private institution. Now, I want you to hear it for yourself from the mouth of a Federal Reserve chairman, right? One of our past ones, Greenspan is his name? Yes, Greenspan. I wanted you to hear it from himself who the Federal Reserve answers to. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that way when they come out and tell you, yes, we're going to go ahead and transfer over to a CBDC system because it's going to be great. Your life is going to be wonderful. Sure it is? Are you sure it's going to be wonderful? When you will have no control over what you buy, when you buy it, how much of it you buy. Just listen to this.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to disagree with him in one small point there. But did you hear what he said? He said the American or the United States government cannot tell us what to do. So do you trust the Federal Reserve to control your money? He just said the United States government cannot tell us what to do. And I disagree with him a little bit on that part, and it's because of this. It's because the United States government, the Congress of the United States of America, and then the Senate, and then the executive branch can dissolve of the Federal Reserve. They can dissolve of the Federal Reserve. It was passed into law, it can be passed out of law. But they've captured our politicians. So our elected officials can get rid of the Federal Reserve and give us back our own monetary sovereignty, where we actually don't have to pay interest on the debt because the debt will be owed within our borders, where the Treasury can issue Treasury dollars, real dollars, that if we even have that gold can be backed up by some measure of gold. Even if they backed it up by 1/10 of 1% each dollar of gold, just 1/10 of 1%. Remember that during Bretton Woods, during the gold standard, the dollar was backed up by at least 40%, by 40% gold. But even if they back up our dollar by 1/10 of 1% in gold, it would still give it value. But this system that we have, it was meant to go away. All right? Remember, America was an experiment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we have the power to get rid of them. It's just that they have bought our politicians, and now they have all the power, but unfortunately, they can do whatever they want to do, just like he said right here. So when you hear the word CBDC, centrally bank digital currency, being pushed onto you, you know exactly what it is that you're getting. Germany energy giant warns of insolvency within days, and they start draining gas from storage. How is Germany going to fight a war, ladies and gentlemen? That's the premise of this article. How's Germany going to fight a war when they can't even heat their own homes? German energy giant and distressed natural gas utility Uniper, which is among the companies most exposed to Russian natural gas, has started using gas that it was storing for this winter. I've said that Europe is going to have a very cold winter, so if you live in Europe, you better start prepping for this winter, because it's going to be right around the corner. Macron announces streetlights will be turned off in response to energy crisis. Despite claiming that France has little dependence on Russian gas, President Macron announces that public lighting will be turned off at night to save energy. How's Italy going to fight in a war, ladies and gentlemen? I think I made my point on that part. And now for the good news of the day. We finally made it to the good news of the day. Actually, I just wanted to show you this. I think this is pretty cool. This is a rare white Rizzo dolphin that was captured by a photographer out in nature. And I just think that it's important for us to take a look at how beautiful nature is, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that is very cool. It'd be a lot cooler if we actually saw it in real life, but look at the waters and look at the sky, and you can see that there's some rain back here in the background. It's raining back there somewhere. So I just wanted to show you this picture, share this with you, because I think it's really cool. Look at that. And I have another one to show you that is really cool, that is not really news. It's just a picture of something that's cool. But first, let's cover this. Albuquerque gas station cut prices in half to help out their customers for a Saturday. So this Albuquerque gas station went ahead and cut their gas prices in half for like a 2-hour period or something like that. And they ended up selling about 5,000 gallons of gasoline at half price. What for? To help their community. And that's what I want to emphasize here, is because when a business does business within your community, and that's all they do, is they just do business within the community, they're just a business, right? So you have to look out for those. But when a business within your community helps the community voluntarily, then they are the community. They are part of the community. So ladies and gentlemen, go out there and look for these businesses that actually want to help voluntarily. No business should ever be forced to do anything that it doesn't want to do, as long as it is acting by the law. But whenever a business voluntarily does something to help within the community that they serve, then they are the community, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure that you support those businesses. And the last one, I just wanted to introduce you to this crazy alpaca who thinks that she's a dog. And this gentleman here got this alpaca when it was just a baby. They had to bottle feed it, and now it lives with them in their home, and it thinks that it is a Labrapoodle. I think that's what you call them, Labrapoodle. So she thinks she's a dog and even travels around in the car that he bought especially for her. And this is it here. This looks like it's in England or the UK or something like that. But I just thought that I'd finish it off with introducing you to an alpaca that thinks that she's a dog. That's a great way to finish off the video, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I hope that you have a great weekend ahead. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Let me see, Alaska time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll have a live stream tomorrow, and we'll do a little bit of talking and having a good time, just like we did yesterday on Friday. Having said that, have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much to all of you that joined in yesterday during the live stream. We had a great time. At least I know I did. And I really do appreciate all of your support, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great weekend. God bless every one of you, and we will see you tomorrow.